The courthouse in Columbus had seen its share of difficult mornings, but this one felt different. By 8:30 a.m., the stone steps outside were already crowded. Reporters adjusted microphones. Camera operators rehearsed stand-up segments. The case had spread far beyond city limits. A short, shaky cell phone video had turned a routine arrest into a public controversy, and now everyone wanted answers. Inside courtroom 4B, the air felt tight. Officer Daniel Harper stood near the defense table, his back straight but his jaw tense. At his side sat Rex, a 4-year-old German shepherd with alert ears and steady amber eyes. Rex wore his K9 vest, the patch from the Columbus Division of Police clearly visible. He looked composed, disciplined, unaware that his career, and possibly Harper's, hung in the balance. 3 months earlier, Rex had taken down a fleeing suspect in a wooded park. The takedown, captured on video from a distance, looked aggressive. Brutal, some said. The suspect claimed excessive force. Advocacy groups demanded reform. Social media decided the verdict before the court could. Now it was time for a judge to decide. The gallery benches creaked as people settled in. Some had come in support of the department. Others came in protest. You could tell by the way they avoided eye contact, by the stiffness in their shoulders. Harper kept his hand resting lightly against Rex's back. The dog's breathing was slow and controlled. "Stay," Harper whispered under his breath. Rex didn't move. Across the aisle, the plaintiff, a thin man in a gray suit, avoided looking at the dog. His arm, once bandaged for the cameras, now rested freely on the table. His lawyer shuffled papers with theatrical confidence. The bailiff called the court to order. "All rise." Everyone stood as the judge entered. Among them, seated in the third row near the back, was a young mother holding her 3-year-old daughter. The child's shoes blinked faintly with each small kick of her legs. Her name was Lily. She wasn't there to testify. She wasn't even officially connected to the case. Her mother had come quietly, unsure why she felt compelled to attend. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else, something she couldn't explain. Lily fidgeted in her mother's lap, playing with a loose thread on her sleeve. Courtrooms were not built for toddlers. The wooden benches were hard. The silence was unnatural. At the front of the room, arguments began. The plaintiff's attorney spoke first, packing deliberately. He described the arrest as reckless. He replayed the cell phone footage on a monitor. In the grainy clip, Rex lunged forward. The suspect fell. There was shouting. Paused at just the right moment, it looked damning. A murmur moved through the gallery. Harper felt the familiar burn of frustration rise in his chest. That video didn't show the chase. It didn't show the warnings shouted. It didn't show the suspect reaching into his waistband. It showed 5 seconds stripped of context. Beside him, Rex's ears twitched slightly at the sound of his own bark echoing from the screen. "Easy," Harper whispered again. The defense attorney stood next. Calm, methodical. She spoke about training protocols, department standards, and the suspect's refusal to comply. She reminded the court that K9 officers are deployed only when necessary. Still, doubt lingered in the room like heavy fog. In the back row, Lily shifted. Her small body went still. Her eyes had locked onto something. Her mother noticed the change instantly. Lily had a habit of becoming unusually quiet when she was focused. It was the same silence she had fallen into months ago after wandering too close to the park near their home. The same silence that had brought nightmares. Lily leaned forward slightly. Her gaze fixed on Rex. Not on the lawyers, not on the judge. On the dog. Rex, sensing something, turned his head. For a brief moment, across the length of the courtroom, their eyes met. The German shepherd's posture changed, not aggressive, not defensive, curious, alert. Lily slid off her mother's lap. Her shoes made a soft light-up flicker as they hit the polished floor. Her mother reached for her arm. Lily, no. But the child had already stepped into the aisle. A few people glanced back, mildly annoyed at the interruption. The judge continued speaking, unaware. Lily took another small step forward. And then another. Each movement seemed louder than it should have been. The faint tap of her shoes echoed against marble and wood. Harper noticed her first. His instincts sharpened. Courtrooms were controlled environments. Unexpected movement triggered automatic caution. But the child wasn't running wildly. She was walking with purpose. Straight toward Rex. The bailiff began a step forward. "It's okay," Lily's mother whispered nervously, rising halfway from her seat. Lily stopped several feet away from the defense table. Her tiny arm lifted. Her finger pointed directly at Rex. The room began to quiet, not because of a command, but because something about the moment felt charged. Rex didn't bark. He didn't shift. He simply watched her. Lily's voice, when it came, was soft. Clear. Certain. Good dog. The words floated in the air. For a second, no one reacted. It was too simple, too unexpected. Then the silence deepened. The judge paused mid-sentence. The plaintiff's attorney lowered his papers. Someone in the gallery inhaled sharply. Lily didn't smile, she didn't giggle. She just stood there pointing as if stating an undeniable fact. Good dog, she repeated, quieter this time. Her mother rushed forward, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry, Your Honor, I don't know. But Lily resisted being pulled away for a moment longer. Her eyes never left Rex. And something strange happened then. Rex's rigid posture softened. His tail gave one slow, controlled sweep against the floor. Harper felt it through the leash. A recognition passed between dog and child, silent but undeniable. The judge cleared his throat. Ma'am, please return to your seat. The courtroom remained hushed as Lily was lifted back into her mother's arms. Whispers began immediately. Does she know the dog? Was she there that night? Why would she say that? Harper's mind raced. He scanned the child's face. There was no fear in her expression. Only certainty. Rex turned his head slightly, still watching her over his shoulder. Harper had worked with Rex long enough to recognize subtle cues. The dog responded differently around threats, around strangers, around victims. This wasn't random curiosity. This was familiarity. The judge resumed proceedings, but the atmosphere had shifted entirely. Arguments sounded thinner now. The 5-second video replayed in everyone's mind, but it no longer felt complete. In the back row, Lily rested her head against her mother's shoulder. Her small fingers curled into the fabric of her sweater. She looked tired, but calm. At the front of the room, Officer Daniel Harper stood very still, one hand resting against Rex's back. For the first time in months, doubt had cracked. And in its place was a single, unsettling question. Why did that child call him a good dog? The answer would change everything. But no one in that courtroom knew it yet. 3 months before the courtroom fell silent, the night had begun like any other shift for Officer Daniel Harper. Late summer in Columbus carried a heavy warmth even after sunset. Streetlights buzzed softly. Crickets hummed in the patches of trees lining the quieter neighborhoods on the east side of town. Harper had just finished paperwork when the call came over dispatch. Unit 12, possible suspicious male near Walnut Creek Park. Caller reports man attempting to approach a young child. Male fled toward wooded area. Harper's posture changed instantly. Beside him in the cruiser, Rex lifted his head. The German Shepherd seemed to sense the shift in tone even before the siren activated. His ears stood upright, muscles tightening in anticipation. Copy that, Harper responded, already turning the ignition. The patrol car sped through intersections, lights flashing blue and red against dark storefront windows. Walnut Creek Park was only 6 minutes away, but every second felt longer. Dispatch updated again. Child is safe. Mother retrieved her. Suspect described as white male, mid-30s, gray hoodie, moving toward tree line. Safe. The word gave Harper brief relief, but not comfort. Because suspects who flee from children rarely do so without reason. He pulled into the park's gravel lot. 2 other patrol units were arriving from opposite directions, tires crunching sharply. A shaken woman stood near the entrance, holding a little girl tightly against her chest. Officers were already speaking with her. Harper didn't approach them immediately. He opened the rear door instead. "Track," he said quietly. Rex jumped out, nose already working the air. The woods behind Walnut Creek Park weren't dense wilderness, but they were thick enough to hide someone desperate. Narrow trails cut through brush and old wooden fencing marked the edge of nearby residential yards. Another officer pointed toward a break in the trees. "He ran that way." Harper nodded. Rex lowered his nose to the ground near the spot where the suspect had reportedly stood. He circled once, twice. Then his body locked onto a direction. Without hesitation, he pulled forward. They moved quickly into the tree line. Branches snapped under boots. Leaves shifted. The air smelled of damp earth and something metallic from a nearby drainage pipe. Harper kept his leash firm but loose enough to allow Rex freedom to work. "Police K9, Harper shouted into the darkness. "Come out now, you will be bitten." No response. Rex's pace increased. They crossed a narrow footbridge over a shallow creek. Harper nearly slipped on wet wood but kept balance. The dog's focus never wavered. Suddenly, Rex veered slightly left, toward a smaller, barely visible side path. Harper frowned. The main trail continued straight. But Rex insisted. Years of partnership had taught Harper one thing: trust the dog. He followed. About 20 yards in, Rex slowed abruptly. He sniffed the ground intensely, near a patch of disturbed dirt. Harper shined his flashlight downward. A small pink object lay partially buried in leaves. A child's bracelet. Tiny plastic beads, a broken clasp. Harper barely registered it before Rex jerked forward again. The scent trail had intensified. Ahead through the trees came the faint sound of movement, hurried footsteps crashing through brush. There, one of the backup officers shouted from somewhere behind. A figure in a gray hoodie burst into view near an old maintenance shed at the edge of the woods. He looked over his shoulder, eyes wide. For a split second, he froze in the beam of multiple flashlights. Then he ran. "Stop, police!" Harper yelled. The man ignored the command and sprinted toward the opposite tree line. That was the moment. The calculation happened instantly in Harper's mind. Distance, speed, darkness, risk of losing him near residential backyards. "Get him," Harper commanded. Rex launched forward. The leash slipped from Harper's hand in a controlled release. The German Shepherd closed the gap with terrifying speed. His training was precise: aim for the lower body, immobilize, hold until command. The suspect stumbled on uneven ground. Rex made contact. The impact knocked the man sideways, sending both crashing into the dirt. Rex secured a grip on the suspect's arm exactly as trained, not random, not wild. Controlled. The man screamed. High panicked. "Get him off, get him off." Harper reached them within seconds. "Stop resisting," he shouted, moving to secure the suspect's other arm. But the man thrashed violently, trying to roll free. One hand disappeared briefly beneath his torso. For a terrifying second, Harper thought weapon. "Show me your hands," he barked. Other officers arrived, helping pin the suspect down. Once both arms were secured, Harper gave the command. "Out!" Rex released immediately, backing away but remaining alert, ready. The suspect continued screaming, now louder. "You sicked him on me. I didn't do anything." His voice carried through the trees and toward the edge of the park where a few bystanders had gathered near the patrol cars. One of them was recording. That phone captured only the takedown, only the moment of impact, only the dog's teeth and the suspect's cries. It did not capture the warnings. It did not capture the chase. It did not capture the bracelet lying in the dirt. Paramedics later treated the suspect for puncture wounds, standard, expected, within policy. But by morning, the video had spread online. The headline read, "Police dog brutally attacks man in park." Clipped, cropped, shared thousands of times. Comment sections exploded. Excessive force. Unnecessary. Another example of police aggression. The suspect's attorney held a press conference 2 days later. He displayed photos of bandaged wounds. He described his client as a victim of reckless policing. No one mentioned why the man had fled. No one mentioned the little girl. Internal Affairs opened an investigation, as protocol required. Rex was placed on temporary suspension pending review. Harper was reassigned to desk duty. For the first time in his career, he doubted the weight of public perception. He replayed the night in his mind constantly. The broken bracelet. The way Rex had shifted trails. The suspect's hand disappearing beneath his body. Something hadn't felt random about that encounter. Something deeper was at play. But without clear evidence, the case focused narrowly on force, not context. And so it moved to civil court. Back in the present, as Harper stood beside Rex in that silent courtroom, Lily's 2 words echoed in his memory. "Good dog." He thought of the bracelet again. Of the side trail Rex had insisted on following. Of the mother clutching her child near the park entrance that night. A detail stirred in his mind. A memory he hadn't fully examined. Because now, 3 months later, a child had recognized his partner. Not with fear, but with gratitude. And Harper couldn't shake the growing realization that the night in the woods had been far bigger than anyone understood. The arrest had sparked outrage, but it had also interrupted something else. Something far more dangerous. And the truth was still buried just beneath the surface. Waiting to be uncovered, long before the courtroom silence, before headlines, before arguments about force and policy. There was just a quiet evening in a modest neighborhood on the east side of Columbus. It had been warm that day, the kind of late summer heat that lingers even after the sun dips below rooftops. Fireflies had begun blinking across front lawns, neighbors watered plants, sprinklers ticked rhythmically in small yards. Lily had been playing near her driveway with a piece of sidewalk chalk almost as long as her forearm. She was 3 years old, fearless in the way only toddlers can be. Her world was small, colorful, and full of curiosity. Her mother, Amanda, was only a few yards away, sorting laundry just inside the open garage. She could hear Lily humming softly to herself while drawing uneven circles on the concrete. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt dangerous. Until the humming stopped. At first, Amanda didn't notice. Silence wasn't rare. Lily often wandered a few steps to chase a butterfly or examine a rock. But 2 minutes passed. Then 3. "Lily," Amanda called casually, folding a towel. No answer. She stepped toward the driveway. The chalk lay abandoned on the ground. The gate along the side yard, the one that led toward the narrow path connecting to Walnut Creek Park, was slightly open. Amanda's chest tightened instantly. Lily, she called louder now. She rushed through the gate and onto the thin gravel walkway that curved toward the park's fence line. The trees ahead cast long shadows. The air felt heavier there, quieter. And then she saw her. Lily stood near the edge of the wooded area, just beyond the fence opening that neighborhood kids sometimes used as a shortcut. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. She was just standing there. Frozen. Amanda's eyes followed her daughter's gaze. A man stood several feet away. Mid-30s, gray hoodie, hands in his pockets. He wasn't touching her. But he was too close. Amanda's heart slammed against her ribs. "Lily," she shouted, her voice breaking as she ran forward. The man's head snapped toward her. For a fraction of a second, their eyes met. His expression shifted, from calm to irritated to calculating. Then he stepped backward. Not hurriedly. Not panicked. Just enough to create distance. Amanda scooped Lily into her arms and held her tightly. "Are you okay? Did he touch you?" she asked breathlessly. Lily shook her head, small fingers gripping her mother's shirt. The man spoke casually, almost defensively. "She dropped something, I was just helping." Amanda noticed then that Lily's pink beaded bracelet was missing. Her stomach dropped. "Stay away from us," she snapped. The man held up his hand slightly, as if offended. "Relax, I was leaving." And he did. He turned and walked briskly toward the tree line, toward the direction of the deeper park trails. Amanda didn't chase him. She didn't take a picture. Her mind was locked on one thing, getting Lily home. Back inside their house, she locked the doors, checked windows, called the non-emergency police number with shaking hands. She described the man as best she could. Gray hoodie, thin build, slight stubble, calm voice. The officer on the phone assured her a patrol unit was being dispatched to search the area. Amanda hung up and knelt in front of Lily. "Sweetheart, what did he say to you?" Lily stared at the floor for a long moment. "He said he had puppies," she whispered. Amanda's throat closed. "And what did you say?" "I said I want to see." Amanda pulled her into another tight embrace, tears stinging her eyes. "You never go with someone you do know, ever, okay?" Lily nodded slowly. That night, after officers searched the park and told Amanda they had detained a suspect nearby, she felt a small wave of relief. They said the man had fled when approached, that a K-9 unit had been used. She didn't think much about it at the time. Her focus was on Lily. But something changed in the days that followed. Lily began waking up in the middle of the night. Not screaming. Just sitting upright in bed. Quiet. When Amanda asked what was wrong, Lily would whisper the same phrase. "Bad man." Sometimes she added another. "Big dog." Amanda assumed the big dog came from the police search that night. She had heard barking in the distance while speaking with officers outside. It made sense that Lily's imagination would mix fear with sound. Children blur memories that way. Weeks passed. The incident faded from neighborhood conversation. No charges had been immediately announced. Amanda didn't follow the news closely. But Lily's behavior didn't fully return to normal. She became hesitant near the side gate. She refused to play alone outside. And sometimes, when they drove past Walnut Creek Park, Lily would point toward the trees. "Dog," she would say softly. Amanda thought she meant fear. She thought Lily associated barking with danger. She never imagined it might mean something else. 3 months later, when she saw a news clip about a police dog accused of excessive force during an arrest at Walnut Creek Park, she felt a flicker of recognition. Gray hoodie. Same park. Same night. Her stomach twisted. The clip showed only a brief moment, a dog lunging, a man falling. She turned it off quickly, not wanting Lily to see. But Lily had already glanced at the screen. And she didn't look scared. She looked thoughtful. Amanda couldn't explain why, but when she later learned the court hearing would be open to the public, she felt compelled to attend. Not to protest. Not to support. Just to see. Now, sitting in the back row of that courtroom, Amanda's mind replayed everything in painful clarity. The open gate. The calm voice offering puppies. The missing bracelet. The officers saying they had apprehended a suspect in the wood shortly after. And Lily's quiet nightmares. When Lily slipped from her lap and pointed at Rex, Amanda's first reaction was embarrassment. But as the words left her daughter's mouth, "Good dog," something inside her shifted. It wasn't random. It wasn't childish distraction. It was recognition. After being pulled back into her seat, Lily leaned close to Amanda's ear. "That's him," she whispered. Amanda's pulse raced. "Who?" she asked carefully. "The dog." A chill spread down her spine. "What about him?" "He chased the bad man." Amanda froze. Lily had never said that before. Never described a chase. Never mentioned seeing the dog in action. "How do you know?" Amanda asked gently. Lily frowned slightly, as if confused by the question. "I saw." Amanda's mind struggled to catch up. Had Lily watched from the fence after Amanda grabbed her? Had she seen the suspect run? Had she seen flashing lights through the trees? Or had she seen something else? Something closer. Something the adults hadn't realized. At the front of the courtroom, Officer Harper glanced back briefly, sensing the stir behind him. Their eyes met for the first time. Amanda felt a strange certainty settle in her chest. That night in the park had not ended at the fence line. It had not ended when she carried Lily home. Somewhere between the open gate and the wooded trail, a police dog had intervened. And her daughter had witnessed it. The little girl no one noticed. The quiet child near the fence. The one whose missing bracelet lay in the dirt, where a suspect tried to hide. The story the courtroom was debating wasn't just about force. It was about interruption. About prevention. About something stopped before it could become tragedy. And the only person who had seen the full picture was 3 years old. Back in her seat, Lily peeked once more toward Rex. The dog remained still, composed, but his gaze drifted back toward her again. Calm. Steady. Almost protective. Amanda wrapped her arm tighter around her daughter. Because for the first time, she realized something terrifying and miraculous. That night, Lily hadn't just been near danger. She had been closer to it than anyone understood. And somewhere in those woods, before anyone could see clearly, a trained K-9 had changed the outcome. The courtroom didn't know it yet. But the smallest witness in the room was holding the missing piece of the truth. The silence after Lily said, "Good dog," did not fade quickly. It stretched. It thickened. It pressed against the walls of the courtroom in Columbus, turning what had been a routine legal proceeding into something else entirely. Judge Eleanor Whitmore adjusted her glasses slowly, eyes moving from the child to Officer Harper, then to Rex. "Ma'am," she said carefully, her voice measured, "please make sure your child remains seated." Amanda nodded quickly, whispering apologies as she guided Lily back onto the bench. But Lily twisted slightly in her arms, still trying to see the dog. Rex hadn't moved. Not an inch. But something about him had changed. His ears were forward now, alert but not tense. His posture was tall yet calm. His eyes, those steady amber eyes, were fixed gently on the little girl. Officer Daniel Harper felt it through the leash, the subtle shift in weight, the focus. He knew Rex's signals better than anyone. He had seen the dog in chaos, in chases, in building searches, in high-risk arrests. This wasn't that energy. This was recognition. Across the aisle, the plaintiff, Marcus Hale, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He avoided looking at either the child or the dog. His attorney leaned toward him, whispering something sharp and quick. The judge cleared her throat. "Let's proceed." But proceed felt impossible. The courtroom had changed temperature. It was no longer about policy manuals and training standards. It was about something more human, something unpredictable. The defense attorney, Claire Donovan, stepped forward slowly. "Your Honor," she began. Before continuing arguments, the defense would like clarification regarding the child's presence. Amanda's heart jumped. I didn't plan for her to speak," she said quickly, standing halfway again. She recognized." Recognized, the plaintiff's attorney cut in sharply. Recognized what exactly? The word hung in the air. Amanda swallowed. "I'm not sure," she admitted honestly. Judge Whitmore studied Lily for a long moment. The little girl wasn't fidgeting now. She wasn't restless. She was watching Rex the way a child watches something familiar. "Counselors," the judge said slowly, "given the nature of the original incident, an alleged approach of a minor near Walnut Creek Park, I believe the court should understand whether this child was present that evening." The room shifted again. Marcus Hale stiffened. Harper's pulse quickened. Claire Donovan turned toward Amanda gently. "Ma'am, was your daughter near the park on the night of August 14th? Amanda hesitated. "Yes," she said finally. "She wandered toward the fence near our house. A man was there." The plaintiff's attorney objected immediately. Relevance. Judge Whitmore raised a hand. "Overruled for now. Continue." Amanda took a shaky breath. "He spoke to her, said he had puppies. I found her before anything happened. The police told me later they detained someone in the woods." Every head in the courtroom slowly turned toward Marcus Hale. His jaw tightened. Claire Donovan spoke carefully. "Did you identify Mr. Hale that evening?" Amanda shook her head. "It was dark. I was focused on my daughter." "And your daughter," Donovan continued softly, "has she spoken about that night?" Amanda glanced down at Lily. "Yes." "What has she said?" Amanda swallowed. "She had nightmares. She mentioned a bad man and a big dog." A ripple moved through the gallery. Marcus Hale's attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, this is speculative and emotionally manipulative. The child is 3 years old." Judge Whitmore's expression hardened slightly. "No one is suggesting testimony from a minor. However, if the child witnessed part of the pursuit, that is not irrelevant." Harper felt his grip on the leash tight, involuntarily. 3 months. 3 months, he had replayed that night in fragments. The broken bracelet. The sudden veer in Rex's track. The urgency in the suspect's movements. He had always sensed something incomplete in the narrative. Now pieces were beginning to align. Claire Donovan turned toward Harper. "Officer, during the track, did your K-9 divert from the main trail at any point?" "Yes," Harper answered without hesitation. "Rex shifted onto a secondary path briefly." "For what reason?" "He alerted on an object in the dirt." "What object?" Harper paused. "A child's bracelet." The courtroom inhaled as one. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. "My daughter's bracelet," she whispered. Marcus Hale's attorney rose again. "Your Honor." "Sit down," Judge Whitmore said firmly, eyes narrowing. She turned back to Harper. "Officer, was that bracelet logged as evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor. It was collected and entered." "And was it tested?" Harper hesitated. "It was bagged but not processed. At the time, it wasn't considered central to the use of force review." A murmur of disbelief spread through the room. Claire Donovan stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, the defense requests immediate review of that item for forensic analysis. The plaintiff's attorney objected again, but his voice lacked earlier confidence. Judge Whitmore leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. This court will recess for 30 minutes. I want the evidence file retrieved immediately. Her gavel struck. The sound echoed sharply. As people began standing, whispering intensely, Lily suddenly wriggled free from her mother again. This time, Amanda didn't stop her right away. Lily walked slowly toward Rex once more. The bailiff started to intervene, but Harper raised a quiet hand. It's okay. Lily stopped a few feet from the dog. Up close, Rex looked larger, powerful shoulders, strong jaw, controlled breath. But his posture lowered slightly, easing himself down into a sit, making himself smaller, safer. Lily extended her tiny hand, not quite touching but close. You scared him, she said softly. Harper felt his heart pound. Who did I scare? He asked gently, crouching down to her level. The bad man, Lily replied matter-of-factly. He ran, you chased. Amanda's knees nearly buckled behind her. Harper's voice stayed steady, though his pulse roared in his ears. Where were you, Lily? She pointed vaguely toward the back of the courtroom. Fence, Mommy came. Harper's mind raced. If Lily had been near the fence when the suspect fled, she could have seen him bolt into the woods. She could have seen Rex pursue. And if the suspect knew she was there, it explained the desperation, the flight, the resistance. He hadn't been running from a routine stop. He had been running from exposure. Rex shifted closer, gently brushing his nose against Lily's sleeve. She giggled faintly. He nice, she said again. Amanda stepped forward, tears streaming now. I didn't know, she whispered to Harper. I didn't know he chased him because of her. Harper swallowed hard. Neither did he. The bailiff cleared his throat gently, signaling the need to restore order as court staff moved to retrieve the evidence file. Lily finally allowed her mother to lift her again. But as she was carried back to her seat, she kept looking over Amanda's shoulder at Rex. And Rex watched her until she was settled. The recess buzzed with tension. Reporters typed frantically on phones outside. Inside, attorneys huddled urgently. What had started as a straightforward excessive force complaint was unraveling into something far more complex. Judge Whitmore returned precisely 30 minutes later. Her expression was different now, sharper, more focused. The court has confirmed, she began, that a pink beaded bracelet was indeed collected near the apprehension site. She looked directly at Marcus Hale. Pending expedited forensic analysis, this court recognizes the potential that the K-9 deployment may have interrupted a separate criminal act. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. The judge's gaze swept the room. And sometimes, she added quietly, truth arrives in unexpected ways. Her eyes rested briefly on Lily. 2 simple words from a child had cracked open a case built on assumptions. And for the first time since that night in the woods, Officer Daniel Harper felt something shift inside him. Not relief. Not yet. But momentum. Because the story wasn't about a dog attacking a man. It was about a dog stopping him. And the smallest witness in the room had just changed everything. When court reconvened after recess, the atmosphere felt electric, as if everyone sensed the case had shifted direction. The pink bracelet sat inside a clear evidence bag on the clerk's desk. Small, fragile, ordinary. And suddenly, incredibly important. Judge Whitmore looked over her glasses. The court has authorized expedited forensic review. However, we will begin by clarifying the timeline of the evening in question. Officer Daniel Harper was called back to the stand. He took the oath again, his hand steady despite the storm in his thoughts. "Officer," Claire Donovan began, "when your K9 diverted from the primary trail, what did you believe at that moment?" Harper chose his words carefully. "I believed Rex had identified something connected to the suspect's path. He does not break track without reason. And when you located the bracelet, it appeared recently dropped. It wasn't weathered. It was partially pressed into disturbed soil. Did you consider that it might belong to a child?" "Yes." "And what did that suggest to you?" Harper paused. "That the suspect may have interacted with a minor prior to fleeing." A murmur swept the gallery again. Across the room, Marcus Hale shifted in his seat, jaw clenched tight. His attorney scribbled notes furiously but avoided eye contact with anyone. Donovan continued, "Did that possibility influence your decision to release Rex when the suspect ran?" Harper didn't hesitate. "Yes." The plaintiff's attorney shot to his feet. "Objection, speculation." "Overruled," Judge Whitmore said calmly. "The officer may explain his state of mind." Harper's voice remained steady, but deeper now. "If a suspect is fleeing after potential contact with a child, immediate apprehension is critical. Losing him in residential woods would increase risk to the community." The courtroom absorbed that. Not as theory, as reality. Meanwhile, forensic technicians had already begun preliminary processing in a side lab coordinated through the Columbus Division of Police. Swabs had been taken from the bracelet weeks ago for storage. Now they were being rushed for testing. Amanda sat in the third row, clutching Lily's hand tightly. She kept replaying the moment near the fence. The gray hoodie. The calm voice offering puppies. The slight smirk when confronted. She remembered something else now, something small she hadn't thought important. When she had grabbed Lily and turned away, she heard footsteps behind them. Quick. Retreating. Not casual anymore. Running. Back in court, Donovan displayed still images from Harper's body camera. Frame by frame, she walked the room through the track. "Here," she said, pausing the footage, "the K9 veers left." The screen showed Rex pulling toward a darker patch of trees. "And here," she continued, advancing slowly, "the officer's light reveals an object." The bracelet appeared briefly in the beam. It looked insignificant at first glance, but now it felt like a spotlight. Marcus Hale's attorney stood again. "Your Honor, this proves nothing regarding use of force." Judge Whitmore leaned forward slightly. "It may prove motive for flight." Silence followed. Because motive changes everything. Meanwhile, Lily leaned close to her mother's ear. "Mommy." Amanda looked down gently. "Yes, sweetheart." "He looked scared." "Who did?" Amanda whispered. "The bad man, when the dog barked." Amanda's stomach twisted. "How do you know he looked scared?" Lily frowned, trying to remember. "He looked back." The simplicity of it made Amanda's breath catch. Lily hadn't just heard barking that night. She had seen him run. She had seen him look over his shoulder, which meant she had likely been closer to the tree line than Amanda realized. A cold realization settled in her chest. If Rex hadn't intercepted him that quickly. The thought was unbearable. At the front of the room, the bailiff approached the bench with a sealed envelope. Judge Whitmore opened it quietly, scanning the contents. Her expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. She set the paper down carefully. "The preliminary DNA analysis indicates partial male DNA present on the bracelet clasp," she said evenly. Amanda gasped softly. The judge continued, eyes fixed on Marcus Hale. "The sample is consistent with the plaintiff." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Marcus Hale's attorney stood abruptly. "Your Honor, partial DNA transfer is not proof of wrongdoing." It is proof of contact, the judge interrupted calmly. Harper felt the air leave his lungs slowly. The bracelet had been the missing thread. Not dramatic. Not flashy. Just a tiny, broken circle of plastic beads. But it connected everything. Donovan stepped forward again. Your Honor, the defense asserts that the K-9 deployment prevented a suspect who had contact with a minor from escaping into a residential area. The force used was consistent with department protocol and proportional to the suspect's attempt to flee. The plaintiff's attorney tried once more. This case is about excessive force, not alleged contact with a child. Judge Whitmore's gaze sharpened. It is about whether the force was justified under the circumstances, and the circumstances appear broader than originally presented. Marcus Hale's composure began to crack. Sweat formed along his temple. He shifted in his chair, glancing toward the exit as if calculating distance. The same instinct that had driven him into the woods that night. Flight. Rex, sitting beside Harper, gave a low, quiet huff, not a growl, not aggressive, just aware. Harper rested a hand gently against his partner, back. Easy, he murmured. The judge requested a brief sidebar with both attorneys. While they spoke in hushed tones near the bench, the gallery buzzed with tension. Amanda hugged Lily tightly. You were very brave, she whispered into her daughter's hair. Lily looked confused. I just told them. And that was the truth. She hadn't planned to change anything. She hadn't understood legal battles. She had simply recognized the dog who chased away the man who made her uneasy. Sometimes truth isn't dramatic. It's simple. At the bench, Judge Whitmore's voice remained controlled. Counselors, given this development, I am inclined to suspend civil proceedings pending potential criminal review. Marcus Hale's attorney stiffened. Criminal review. Yes, the judge replied evenly. If contact with a minor is substantiated, this court cannot ignore it. The words landed like thunder. When the attorneys returned to their tables, the shift was undeniable. The power dynamic had flipped. The man who claimed victimhood now sat under a different shadow. Judge Whitmore addressed the room. This court will adjourn for today. Further proceedings will be scheduled pending additional forensic results and review by the district attorney's office. Her gavel struck firmly. The sound echoed louder than before. People began standing slowly, whispering intensely. Reporters rushed toward the hallway. Officers moved toward Marcus Hale cautiously. Not to arrest. Not yet. But the air had changed. Harper knelt briefly beside Rex before leaving the stand. You did good, he whispered quietly. Rex's tail tapped once against the floor. Across the room, Lily wriggled free again and waved. Rex's ears perked instantly. Amanda approached Harper carefully. I'm sorry, she said softly. I didn't know how important that bracelet was. Harper shook his head. You didn't need to, he did. He glanced toward Marcus Hale, now pale and silent. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, unrelated, but somehow fitting. Because what had started as a public accusation against a police dog was unraveling into something far more serious. A bracelet had been dropped. A child had been approached. A suspect had run. And a trained K-9 had followed the only trail that mattered. The bracelet wasn't just evidence. It was proof that Rex hadn't attacked blindly. He had intercepted. And now the truth was no longer buried in the woods. It was sitting in plain view, inside a clear plastic evidence bag. And it was about to change everything. The next morning, the courthouse in Columbus was buzzing louder than ever. The preliminary DNA report from the pink bracelet had already leaked to reporters, and the story was circulating in local news. The simple object, once overlooked, had become the fulcrum of the case. Inside courtroom 4B, the air was electric. Officers, attorneys, and spectators waited. Harper and Rex arrived early, the German shepherd calm but alert, aware of tension even before anyone spoke. Harper's hand rested on Rex's back, a steadying anchor for both of them. Claire Donovan, the defense attorney, stepped forward with the evidence in hand. "Your Honor, further review of the bracelet confirms partial male DNA consistent with the plaintiff Marcus Hale," she said. More importantly, K9 logs and officer body camera footage show that the dog diverted toward this object before the apprehension, indicating an immediate connection to a potential victim nearby. The courtroom murmured. Marcus Hale shifted uncomfortably, his face pale. His attorney tried to interrupt but was silenced by Judge Whitmore's calm, "Let the record show." Harper's mind went back 3 months to the night in the park. He remembered the trail, the subtle veer, the disturbed dirt, the bracelet almost invisible in the low light. He remembered thinking this could be important. At the time it seemed secondary, just an object in the dirt, but now it carried proof. Proof that the suspect had fled for a reason. Proof that Rex hadn't attacked without cause. Outside, Amanda held Lily's hand tightly. The child sat quietly, eyes wide, still absorbing the courtroom tension. She didn't fully understand DNA, lawyers, or forensic analysis, but she recognized Rex, and she remembered that night, the man with the gray hoodie. She remembered the fear, and she remembered the dog. Donovan continued, turning to Marcus Hale's attorney. Additionally, body camera footage confirms that the suspect ran immediately after leaving the child's vicinity. The dog's deployment intercepted him before he could escape into a residential area. His attempts to flee align with potential prior contact with a minor, an act consistent with attempted abduction. A hush fell over the gallery. The significance was not lost. The alleged victim of excessive force was now under suspicion for a far more serious crime. The pieces of the night, once scattered and misinterpreted, were finally forming a clear picture. Judge Whitmore spoke next, her voice steady and authoritative. "Given the preliminary evidence, the court acknowledges that the K9 unit's actions may have prevented a crime against a minor. This shifts the context in which the alleged excessive force occurred." Harper felt a deep exhale leave him. 3 months of public scrutiny, anxiety, and self-doubt were suddenly reframed. Rex had not acted recklessly. He had acted as trained as protector. And Harper had followed his partner's instincts correctly, trusting the dog's judgment. Marcus Hale's lawyer, visibly tense, tried again. "Your Honor, partial DNA evidence does not definitively establish criminal intent. My client's rights." Judge Whitmore held up a hand. "The court is aware of standard legal protections. However, when a suspect flees after possible interaction with a minor and a K9 unit follows and intercepts, the situation warrants consideration beyond claims of misconduct. The context is crucial." Harper's eyes flicked toward Lily. The 3-year-old's finger briefly twitched, pointing again at Rex. She whispered softly, "Good dog." Harper's chest tightened. It wasn't simply the words. It was the certainty in her voice, the way she remembered the events. The child had witnessed the truth in a way that adults had missed. She had seen the man run. She had recognized that Rex's actions were protective, not punitive. Amanda's hand trembled slightly as she held Lily. "You saw," Amanda whispered. Lily nodded, her tiny hand resting on her mother's arm. Forensic analysts present in the courtroom confirmed the findings in detail. Partial DNA on the bracelet, consistent with Marcus Hale, indicated direct contact with the child. The bracelet's location along the secondary trail aligned perfectly with Harper's and Rex's body camera footage. Each step, each command, each precise movement of Rex during the chase had been part of a carefully executed sequence. The courtroom murmured again. The press scribbled notes furiously. What had started as a public accusation against a K9 unit was unraveling. Now, it was clear the dog had prevented a potential abduction. Donovan summarized. Rex's deployment, following training and instinct, not only intercepted a fleeing suspect but likely prevented harm to a minor. The officer and the dog acted appropriately, under extreme circumstances, in the service of public safety. Judge Whitmore nodded, making notes in the case file. The court will review all new evidence and statements. It is apparent, however, that initial assessments of the incident based solely on video clips were incomplete. The deployment of the K-9 unit now appears not only justified but necessary. Marcus Hale's composure crumbled. He stared at Harper and Rex, realizing the narrative had shifted dramatically. Where the public once saw aggression, they now had evidence of protection. Where the courtroom had once questioned force, it now recognized prevention. Harper allowed himself a small, private exhale. Rex remained calm, head raised, ears attentive but demeanor unassuming. The dog did not need recognition or praise. He had followed the scent. He had done his job. Outside the courtroom, reporters lined the steps. News spread rapidly. The K-9 unit had prevented a potential child abduction. Headlines changed from "Police Dog Attacks Man" to "K-9 Saves Child. Evidence Reveals True Events." Amanda held Lily close. She whispered, "You were right, sweetie." Lily leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "I just saw," she said simply. It was true. Harper, sitting back in his chair, glanced at Rex. The German shepherd's eyes met his, calm and steady, almost proud in quiet restraint. The dog had not only completed his duty, but had done so in a way that no human had initially appreciated. Judge Whitmore's voice cut through the quiet chatter. The court recognizes that the K-9 unit's actions likely prevented a greater crime. Further review will continue, but the initial allegations against the officer and the dog are now under serious reconsideration. In the gallery, whispers turned to realization. People began to understand that what they had thought was reckless was actually precise, protective, and life-saving. Harper's hands relaxed on the leash. For months, he had doubted public perception, replaying the night repeatedly in his mind. Now he could see clearly. Rex had acted correctly. He had acted heroically. Amanda whispered again to Lily, "See, he's a good dog." The child's eyes sparkled. "Yes, good dog," she echoed. Outside the courtroom, cameras caught Harper and Rex leaving together. The dog's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos around them. The truth was now emerging, and it was undeniable. The deployment had been both justified and critical. The pink bracelet, small and broken, had changed the story. It had revealed a hidden truth. It had shown the world that heroes are sometimes silent, sometimes overlooked, and sometimes four-legged. And the smallest witness, 3 years old, had recognized it first. Sometimes the truth doesn't need loud voices. Sometimes it simply needs to be seen. And in this case, the truth had been sitting quietly in the dirt, waiting for the right pair of eyes or paws to find it. The tension in Columbus's courtroom 4B was palpable as the day of the judgment arrived. Months of debate, speculation, and public scrutiny had led to this moment. Outside, news crews gathered, broadcasting live updates. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, city officials, and curious spectators, all waiting for the judge to deliver what could finally settle the storm surrounding Officer Daniel Harper and his K-9 partner, Rex. The gallery was unusually quiet. The air seemed to hum with anticipation. Marcus Hale sat stiffly at the plaintiff's table, attorney at his side, pale and tense. Every time Harper's gaze met his, there was a flicker of unease, a subtle acknowledgement that the narrative had changed dramatically since the initial viral video. Judge Eleanor Whitmore entered the room, her robe flowing behind her, and the gavel struck the sound block. Immediately, silence descended, heavy and complete. The weight of authority filled the room. Everyone instinctively rose. "All rise," the bailiff intoned. When everyone was seated, the judge began to speak, her voice measured and deliberate, commanding attention. This court has reviewed all evidence, including preliminary forensic reports, body camera footage, and statements regarding the events of August 14th at Walnut Creek Park. She paused, eyes sweeping over the room. The incident involving Officer Daniel Harper and his K-9 partner, Rex, has been evaluated in context. The court acknowledges that prior evaluations, based solely on limited video footage, failed to capture the full circumstances of the encounter. Harper's hands rested lightly on Rex's back. The German Shepherd sat alert, ears forward, tail calm, a model of composure. Harper felt the dog shift slightly, subtle reassurance, as though sensing that the truth would finally prevail. Judge Whitmore continued. Evidence shows that the suspect, Marcus Hale, fled the scene after a minor was present in the vicinity. Forensic analysis of a pink beaded bracelet collected at the location confirms partial DNA consistent with Mr. Hale. Furthermore, body camera footage and K-9 tracking logs confirm that Rex diverted from the primary trail upon detecting this object, leading to the interception of the suspect before he could escape into a densely wooded residential area. The courtroom stirred. Whispers ran like electricity across the gallery. Reporters quickly typed into keyboards, capturing every word. Amanda, seated with her daughter Lily, held the child's hand tightly, her knuckles white. She looked at Lily and whispered, "You saw the truth." Lily simply nodded, small eyes wide, absorbing the intensity of the moment. Judge Whitmore's gaze settled on Marcus Hale. Given these circumstances, the court finds that the deployment of the K-9 unit was not only justified but necessary. The officer and his K-9 acted according to department protocol and with a precise understanding of risk to the community and to a minor in potential danger. Marcus Hale's attorney protested, his voice rising. "Your Honor, the allegations of excessive force were not proven. My client." "Silence," Judge Whitmore commanded. Her gavel struck. The court recognizes that the initial allegations of misconduct arose from incomplete evidence and viral video clips that failed to convey critical context. The narrative presented in public forums did not account for the actions of the K-9 unit in preventing potential harm to a child. The words hung in the air, undeniable, shifting the energy in the room. Harper felt a wave of relief wash over him. Months of self-doubt, public criticism, and sleepless nights suddenly felt vindicated. Rex remained poised, calm but proud in subtle ways, an aura of quiet heroism radiating from the German Shepherd. Judge Whitmore continued, her voice softening but remaining authoritative. The court commends Officer Daniel Harper and K-9 Rex for their professionalism, training, and swift action under conditions of uncertainty. The evidence indicates that, without this intervention, a minor could have been placed in imminent danger. The room erupted in whispers again. Marcus Hale's face drained of color. The tables had turned. The man who had claimed victimhood now faced scrutiny not just from the court but in the court of public opinion. Claire Donovan, Harper's attorney, stepped forward. "Your Honor, may the record reflect that the K-9 unit's deployment prevented potential harm, thereby highlighting the necessity and precision of their actions." Judge Whitmore inclined her head. "It is so noted." Outside the courtroom, reporters immediately began broadcasting live. Headlines rapidly evolved. K-9 hero, dog intercepts suspect, prevents potential child harm. Court vindicates Columbus officer and K-9. Child witness confirms dog's protective role. Amanda looked down at Lily. "You helped prove it," she said gently. Lily's small hand tapped Rex's head in quiet admiration. "Good dog," she whispered again, her words carrying the weight of innocence yet undeniable clarity. Harper knelt beside Rex, scratching behind the dog's ears. "You did it, buddy," he said softly. "You did exactly what you were trained to do." Rex's tail thumped once against the floor, subtle but deliberate, a canine affirmation of duty fulfilled. Marcus Hale, still seated, avoided eye contact. His attorney whispered urgently, but Marcus's hands fidgeted. The room's energy had shifted. The power dynamic had decisively changed. Social media would soon amplify this judgment. Public perception, once skewed against the officer and his dog, now shifted in favor of recognition for courage and professionalism. Judge Whitmore addressed the courtroom one final time. This case demonstrates the importance of context in evaluating law enforcement actions. Video clips, without complete information, can misrepresent reality. This court encourages public understanding that K-9 units are trained to protect, not to harm unnecessarily, and that in this instance, intervention likely prevented tragedy. The gavel struck firmly. Harper exhaled deeply. Months of stress, criticism, and uncertainty were alleviated. Rex remained composed, his amber eyes glancing briefly at Lily before returning to Harper. Amanda hugged Lily tightly again. "You helped tell the truth," she said. Lily nodded simply, small fingers entwined with her mother. "I just said what I saw," she replied innocently. Outside, the press swarmed. Cameras caught Harper walking with Rex by his side. Reporters called out questions, but Harper remained calm, letting Rex's presence speak volumes. The dog's discipline and restraint had saved more than just a minor. It had saved Harper's reputation and restored confidence in K-9 units. Later, in a quiet moment, Harper reflected on the events that had brought them here. The viral video, the public outrage, the sleepless nights, all had led to this courtroom revelation. But the key had been small, often overlooked details. A pink bracelet in the dirt, a 3-year-old witness, and a dog who followed instinct and training flawlessly. Rex had performed a simple, yet profound act. He had recognized danger and acted without hesitation. In doing so, he had altered the trajectory of that night's events. And the smallest witness, Lily, had been the first to understand it. She had pointed. She had spoken. She had seen the truth that adults initially missed. 2 words, repeated softly, had confirmed the heroism of a dog whose work is rarely acknowledged. Judge Whitmore's ruling, while primarily focused on the legality and appropriateness of the K-9 deployment, had far-reaching implications. Policies would be reviewed, training protocols reinforced, and public perception, at least temporarily, shifted from condemnation to appreciation. Harper patted Rex gently. "We did good, boy," he murmured. Rex's ears twitched, tail swaying slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of partnership and duty. Amanda and Lily approached. "Thank you," Amanda said to Harper, voice full of relief and gratitude. "You and Rex, you protected her." Harper shook his head. "Rex did the work, I just followed him." Lily tapped Rex lightly on the nose. "Good dog," she said again, simple and clear. Harper smiled, a laugh escaping despite months of tension. Sometimes heroism doesn't roar. Sometimes it moves silently through the woods, guided by instinct, training, and a loyal heart. And in this case, justice, recognition, and truth had finally aligned, all because a dog had chased a suspect, a child had seen the events, and 2 small words had echoed across a courtroom, changing everything. The courtroom had emptied, but the echoes of that day lingered in every corner of Columbus. Outside, reporters crowded around the courthouse steps, their cameras capturing every reaction, every glance. Social media buzzed with posts, tweets, and video clips of the child's recognition of Rex. The story had shifted completely, from accusations of brutal attack to a tale of courage, instinct, and protection. Officer Daniel Harper walked slowly through the hallways, Rex trotting faithfully at his side. Harper's mind replayed every moment: the chase, the bracelet, the little girl's words, the courtroom judgment. For 3 months he had doubted himself, questioned every decision, and wondered if the viral clip would define his career. Now it was clear. The truth had prevailed, and the credit belonged not just to him, but to Rex and, in a surprising twist, to a 3-year-old girl who had observed more than anyone had realized. Amanda followed closely, holding Lily's hand. The child had been calm and composed throughout the trial, Yet Harper could see the impact on her. She had witnessed events that most adults had missed, and her recognition of Rex had provided clarity that no forensic analysis or body camera footage could have. In many ways, her innocence had cut through layers of complexity to reveal the fundamental truth. Rex had acted heroically. Once outside, Harper allowed himself a deep exhale. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but Harper simply glanced at Rex, kneeling slightly to give the dog a gentle scratch behind the ears. "We did it, boy. You did exactly what you were trained to do." Rex's tail thumped softly against the concrete, a quiet affirmation of duty fulfilled. Amanda approached, voice soft but filled with emotion. "Officer Harper, Rex, thank you. You protected Lily that night. You protected all of us." Harper shook his head, trying to deflect the praise. "Rex did the work. I just followed him." Lily stepped forward, small hand resting gently on Rex's head. "Good dog," she repeated, her voice carrying the same clarity it had in the courtroom. The local police department quickly released a statement confirming the court's findings. The statement highlighted the importance of K-9 units, their rigorous training, and the necessity of context when evaluating law enforcement actions. Harper's name was cleared publicly, and Rex became an overnight symbol of dedication and protection. Within days, Harper and Rex received recognition from the city. A small ceremony at the police headquarters honored the K-9 unit for exceptional service in protecting the community. Harper held Lily in his arms briefly as she placed a hand on Rex, the child's wide eyes reflecting admiration and trust. The ceremony was modest, but its significance was enormous, a public acknowledgement of bravery, training, and instinct. News crews arrived to interview Harper, but he deflected the spotlight to Rex. "He's the hero," Harper insisted, gesturing toward the German Shepherd. "I just work with him. He saved a child that night. That's all that matters." The press coverage expanded nationally. Stories highlighted the small details that had gone unnoticed: the bracelet in the dirt, the 3-year-old's observations, and the calculated precision of Rex's tracking. Commentators emphasized how easily public perception could be distorted by incomplete information. The narrative transformed from condemnation to admiration, showing the public how critical context is when evaluating law enforcement actions. For Marcus Hale, the aftermath was severe. Investigations continued regarding his actions that night. The court's ruling, combined with the evidence of potential interaction with a minor, placed him under criminal scrutiny. Public opinion shifted swiftly against him. Once the alleged victim in a viral clip, he now faced serious questions about his behavior. The contrast between his intentions and Rex's protective intervention became a central focus of the media. Harper's professional life also changed. He was reinstated fully to active duty, and Rex returned to his regular patrols. However, the bond between officer and dog had deepened. Harper had always trusted Rex's instincts, but the courtroom events reinforced the dog's intelligence, judgment, and loyalty. Every time Harper clipped on the leash, he felt the quiet assurance that Rex could be counted on, not just as a partner, but as a protector of the community. Amanda and Lily continued to visit the police department occasionally, often stopping to greet Harper and Rex. Lily's fascination with Rex had grown into a genuine admiration. She would ask questions about training, patrols, and how Rex always knew what to do. Harper patiently explained, emphasizing discipline, trust, and respect for the role Rex played. Lily's eyes sparkled with curiosity and wonder, the innocence of childhood tempered by the profound understanding she had gained through observation. Months later, Harper and Rex received a special commendation from the state. The ceremony recognized K-9 units that had prevented potential crimes and emphasized the importance of swift, trained intervention. Harper accepted the award but insisted that Rex receive the public credit. Photographs captured Harper kneeling beside Rex, Lily standing nearby, pointing once more and whispering, "Good dog." That single phrase had become a mantra for Harper, a reminder that sometimes the smallest witnesses and the quietest actions reveal the truth most clearly. The case also had lasting implications for law enforcement policy. Police departments across the country began reviewing K-9 deployment protocols, training methods, and public communication strategies. The incident demonstrated the importance of context and observation, highlighting how careful documentation and attention to detail could prevent misunderstandings and protect both officers and civilians. Harper's case became a reference point in law enforcement seminars, illustrating the value of teamwork between human officers and K-9 units. For Harper, the biggest impact was personal. He had faced months of criticism, scrutiny, and self-doubt, questioning decisions that had been instinctive and guided by experience. Now, he had validation, not just from the court but from the community, his peers, and the public. And he had Lily, the small witness whose words had crystallized the truth in a way that adults had overlooked. Her voice had cut through assumptions, media narratives, and misinformation. Two simple words had shifted the trajectory of an entire case. Rex, as always, remained composed. The German Shepherd's demeanor was steady, his amber eyes calm and observant. Harper often reflected on the dog's intelligence and loyalty. "He doesn't seek praise," Harper would say quietly. "He just does his job, and sometimes that's enough to change lives." Amanda often told Lily the story, emphasizing how bravery, observation, and honesty mattered. Lily's young mind understood the essentials. A dog had protected her, and her words had helped prove it. It was a story of trust, courage, and recognition, and one she carried in her heart for years to come. The media dubbed Rex the hero dog of Columbus. Harper received personal letters of gratitude from families across the city, many recounting moments when their own children had encountered K-9 units in public and felt inspired or reassured. Rex had become more than a police dog. He was a symbol of protection, partnership, and instinct guided by training. Years later, Harper would reflect on the night at Walnut Creek Park. The viral video, the public scrutiny, and the courtroom ordeal had left an indelible mark on him. But the memory he cherished most was simple: Lily's small hand, her bright eyes, and the words she had spoken so clearly, "Good dog." That child's recognition had turned a controversial incident into a testament to truth, bravery, and protection. And in the quiet moments long after the courtroom lights had dimmed and the news cameras were gone, Harper would kneel beside Rex, scratching behind his ears, and say softly, "You did it, boy. You saved her. You saved the truth." Rex would sit, calm and watchful, a living reminder that courage is not measured by size or age, but by instinct, training, and a willingness to act when it matters most. The story of the bracelet, the chase, the courtroom, and the small witness would be told for years, in police training, in community programs, and in the hearts of those who understood the quiet heroism of a dog, a child, and the bond that had changed everything. Sometimes heroism is loud and public, sometimes it is quiet and unseen, and sometimes it is validated by two simple words whispered by a 3-year-old girl. "Good dog." And in that moment, in every retelling, everyone knew Rex had been more than a K-9. He had been a protector, a partner, and a hero.